Hi guys, it is Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing and I'm here with another weekly wrap up. So I got so much read this week, so I'm just going to go straight in and tell you all the books that I've read. And one of the first books I finished in the last week was Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is a diverse own voices book about a young woman living in Korea in the early 1900s, and she's the only daughter of this little family, and she is very much loved, and then she ends up becoming pregnant outside of marriage, and they don't know, her mother does not know what they're going to do, what her life is going to be like, and then a kindly Protestant kind of priest who is travelling through the area offers to marry her and take her to Japan with him, and he will be obviously her husband and father to her child, and they decide to take him up on that, and she goes to Japan, and from then on all her family are kind of living in Japan and growing up in Japan, but being treated as Koreans in Japan, and Koreans in Japan during that time were almost treated like second class citizens and weren't treated very well, so it kind of goes through this whole generation of the family. I quite enjoyed this, and I really liked I liked most of the characters. I really enjoyed kind of knowing about Korean culture and Japanese culture in it. I haven't read a whole lot of books based either in Korea or Japan, so for the first maybe quarter of the book it is set in Korea and then the rest of it is set in Japan, and there was a lot I think I learned in this book. I never knew how Koreans were treated in Japan during this time, and almost all the way up to the 1980s they were still kind of treated quite badly. I don't know exactly when that changed, but I had no idea that, you know, children born of Korean parents were still considered Korean, and when they were 14 years old they kind of had to register as Koreans in Japan, and from then on, like every 2 or 3 years, they had to keep going back to register, and they could kind of be deported at any time back to Korea, even though they hadn't even been born in Korea, they'd never been to Korea before, and their home was essentially Japan. They could still be deported at any time if these Japanese authorities felt like it, and I just thought that was pretty amazing to find out because I never knew anything about that. I think I got a little bit bored of this book maybe at 3/4 of the way through, just because it seemed to be dragging a bit, and it was kind of one of those ones where there was no particular end in sight. I wasn't sure exactly when it would end, and it could kind of keep going forever really, like the way it was just following family, and like, you know, the daughter's sons and then their sons and their sons and stuff like that. So I got a little bit wary of it, but eventually it ended and it was all okay. So I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I did enjoy it, and I do recommend it for people who are looking for more diverse reads, because this definitely was diverse and it definitely taught me a lot about Japanese and Korean culture, as I said, and particularly as well what Japan was like during the World War II, which I've never actually read about what living in Japan was like during World War II, and there was a little bit set in this during World War II, so I really enjoyed that as well. The next book I read was a random book I ended up reading on my phone from the library, and it was Gypsy Girl by Kathryn James, and this is about a girl who is a gypsy, and her name is Sammy Jo, and she is in this particular area for her sister's wedding, and she ends up kind of meeting up with this boy that she has this kind of connection with from the past called Gregory, and he's kind of the rich boy, and he's obviously a gorger, he's a settled person, he lives in like a lovely big house, and his parents are quite rich, so they come from very different backgrounds, but they have this connection which is kind of explained during the book, and Sammy Jo is also she's like a really trained martial arts fighter, and she does a lot of kind of street fights in order to earn money to help pay for her sister's wedding, but her family actually don't know she's doing this. She does it in secret. Kind of stumbles on this kind of weird mystery kind of thing that's happening with this factory that's beside the land that they are staying on during her sister's wedding. And the man that owns the business is very prejudiced against travellers and gypsies, and he has like a lot of things to say about them. He's very kind of aggressive towards them, and she ends up stumbling across something that ends up putting her life in danger, and her family's life and Gregory's life in danger as well when he's trying to help her, and it kind of goes from there. So it kind of looked like it was going to be this kind of contemporary read with a bit of a twist, and then it turned into more of kind of a thriller, which I actually really enjoyed, and I really love Sammy in this. She is such a great character. She is so strong, so independent. She very much knows like who she is and what she wants to be in life. She knows she doesn't want to be like a normal gypsy girl, which is to get married very young and have babies and be a wife, which is just kind of tradition and culture in gypsy like families. I also really love that when her and Gregory were kind of romantic, I felt like she was very much the person in the relationship that wore the trousers in a way. Like, she was very much the protective person in the relationship, and she's the one that would be able to protect Gregory from thugs, rather than, like, you know, the cliche way of the guy protecting the girl. It's very much the girl protecting the guy in this sense, and that was just a nice little twist that I really, really liked. I just really loved seeing her really take control of these situations and protect Gregory. This book also brought up so much, like, prejudice that gypsy families can they just come up against, especially if they're being in places, like going to these places that they've been going through for like decades, almost centuries. It's kind of a tradition, and suddenly the land that they're always settle on for a few days or a week or how long it is suddenly like owned by a different person, and it can just bring up all this trouble, and how sometimes trouble can kind of follow these gypsy families without them actually meaning to. It's just like, just the way kind of some settled people can kind of, you know, just have these opinions towards them, and how just kind of trouble just kind of arises, and it's just kind of something that they have to expect, which is like obviously awful, and I just really enjoyed reading about that, because obviously in Ireland we have quite a big traveller, we wouldn't call them gypsies in Ireland, we call them travellers, but we would have quite a large traveller like population, and I grew up in an area, I live in an area where there is a traveller site, and I went to school with a lot of travellers, so I would have known them like when I was small, so yeah, it's just something that really, really interests me, and I really, really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm really hoping there's a sequel. It kind of ends off where there could be a sequel, so I'm really, really hoping that there's a sequel soon. And I will say, Kathryn James, this isn't Own Voices, it's diverse, but it's not Own Voices, but Kathryn James worked with a lot of traveller children and traveller teenagers as some sort of job that she had, so she does know traveller gypsy culture really, really well. So obviously, you know, she brought a lot of that knowledge into this book, so it's quite authentic. If you ask me, everything in this book is quite authentic when it comes to gypsy culture. Next book I read was The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. This is a book I received from HarperCollins in exchange for an honest review, and this is a mystery thriller about a woman called Cass who is going down this lane really late one day, kind of a shortcut home, and she sees another woman waiting in this car, and it's a real stormy, dark, horrible night, and she kind of pulls over for a moment thinking this woman might need her help, and then when the woman doesn't really, you know, like gesture to her or anything, she kind of feels like she will just go on. She's a little bit afraid herself of getting out of the car in case it's some kind of trick, so she just continues like on her way home. And then the next morning she wakes up and her husband tells her that a woman was found dead in the car, and it turns out it's the woman that Cass saw. So she is just like absolutely guilt-ridden. She can't tell anyone because she's afraid of what they would think of her for not helping out a woman that could have been in distress or in need, and this guilt like plagues her, and throughout this whole book Cass is dealing with this kind of weird memory loss, and she's afraid that it could be connected to her mother who had early onset dementia, and it's very much this case of an unreliable narrator, because you never know if what Cass says is true or not, or, you know, is she missing something in like certain situations, and like all this stuff kind of keeps happening that like the reader doesn't know about, and it turns out that like, you know, Cass did forget something or did say something that like, you know, the reader wasn't told at the time, and it makes it a really, really interesting read. I really, really love this. It's a really fast read. I read it like within a day. I just couldn't put it down. I just really loved following Cass's story. It was just so gripping and so thrilling. And near the end, kind of something happens where things are revealed, and I was just in shock. Like, I could not believe it. I didn't really see it. I kind of saw it come, but I didn't really. I don't know how. Like, it's just wasn't totally like surprised, but it was still shocking, if you know what I mean. And my heart just like broke for her as well. Like, I just really, really felt for her, and yeah, I just absolutely love this. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and I really, really recommend it for anyone who likes a good thriller. The next book I read was Because You'll Never Meet Me by Leah Thomas, and this is a book that I've read before and I've talked about a lot in tag videos and stuff, because it was one of my favourite books of 2015, and I was going to read the sequel, which is Nowhere Near You, and I kind of started reading the sequel, and then I realised that my memory of this book was a little bit vaguer than I thought it was, and I was like, I love this book so much that I was like, I don't want to go into the sequel without knowing the full story and without being really fresh on the first book. So I decided I would reread Because You'll Never Meet Me, and I'm so glad I did because I love this book so much. This is about two boys called Moritz and Ollie. Ollie lives in America and Moritz lives in Germany, and they both have these kind of weird disabilities. Ollie is allergic to electricity and Moritz was born with no eyes, and he kind of uses echolocation to be able to see, but he also has a pacemaker in his heart, which means that he will never be able to meet Ollie because Ollie could like stop his pacemaker from working, and then the pacemaker could also affect Ollie. So they become pen pals and they kind of very quickly become best friends, and it's just this really wonderful story of friendship and love and these two boys helping each other out when like no one else in the world really understands them, but they can understand each other because they're both going through very similar things in like kind of self-love and self-acceptance and just dealing with the world around them in a way that no one else knows how to deal with it. And both their voices are so unique as well. Like, you know immediately who's talking. Like, Ollie's a little bit like a squirrel, and he's like he's really energetic and really excitable all the time, where Moritz is a little bit more somber, a little bit more calm about things. And he's a little bit older than Ollie as well, but it's just so great. I just really love this book. It was a 5-star read the first time I read it, a 5-star read again, and yes, I absolutely loved it, and I cannot recommend this book enough for people because I adore it. And then I went on and read the sequel, which I obviously don't want to say too much about, and this just kind of follows on with Ollie and Maritz's stories, and I really love this one as well. I was a little bit unsure about it for like a little while, but once I kind of got near the end, I kind of finished it, I was like, this more or less gave me the same feelings that I did with the first one. So I think it might be more of like a 4.5 stars because I didn't love it as much as the other one. As the first one, but I still really loved it. There was some really great character development in this one, particularly with Moritz. I think he just kind of went out of his comfort zone so many times in this book. He really grew from in my point of view as a character. We got to see, this one actually reminded me a lot of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which you guys know that I'm not a massive fan of, but for this one we're kind of seeing more, we see a few more children that had these weird kind of disabilities, and so it's kind of like, you know, these kids have all these kind of weird and wonderful things about them, which reminds me a little bit of Miss Peregrine's. But I really enjoy seeing like more children like that, and kind of seeing Ollie and Moritz kind of bond with them a little bit. And yeah, it was just a really great book. I really enjoyed it, and a 4.5 stars. The next book I read is Changeless by Gail Carriger. I did have this from the library, but I gave it back. And this one is the second book in the Parasol Protectorate series, so it's like set in this steampunk Victorian era London, and it's about this woman called Alexia Tarabotti, and she is basically a preternatural, which means when any supernatural creature touches her, they become human while they're touching her, which means they can never really hurt her. So she is quite powerful in this supernatural world. She's very rare, and this is just kind of going on with her adventures. And in this book, she is kind of investigating this weird thing that's happening, where like all the supernatural creatures in specific vicinities are being turned human for like prolonged periods of time, and they don't know what is causing this. So she ends up kind of travelling to Scotland at one point, thinking that it has something to do with something that's in Scotland. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, but it's just because I feel like I don't love these books as much as other people do. Like, I find them entertaining, but I'm not like obsessed with them. I'm not dying to turn the page and find out what happens. I'm kind of so about it. But as I said, they're always entertaining reads for me. I really enjoyed the ending of this book. It made me really angry, but I enjoyed it. I am really eager to read the next one, so 3 out of 5 stars, but a very strong 3 out of 5 stars. The last book I finished was a NetGalley book, and it was The Young Widower's Handbook by Tom McAllister, and this is about a young man. He is 29 years old, and his name is Hunter Cady, and his wife Kate dies suddenly, and he is kind of at a loss of what to do, and he ends up going on this kind of weird road trip through America and with her ashes, and kind of goes on this kind of like last trip with her. And unfortunately I did not like this book. It just didn't connect with me. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be this kind of journey of kind of this widower dealing with grief and loss, and kind of maybe learning how to overcome it a bit, and learning how to kind of move on and be free. and I don't think that is what I got. I think it's what the author intended to do, but it's not what I got from it at all. I actually just felt like the whole thing was very scattered. The writings felt very scattered, messy, and I just didn't like it at all. I really didn't like Hunter as a main character. He's very pretentious. He's kind of one of these people who like would describe himself as a writer even though he doesn't write, and like wants to be thought of as an intellectual even though he doesn't really do anything like to be an intellectual, if you know what I mean. And he like can't hold down any jobs. He always has like these weird problems with like why he can't like have a job, or he gets fired for like really silly reasons. And yeah, he's just not the type of person I'd like in real life, so I really didn't like him in the book either, even though I did feel for him, for his loss and for his grief over his wife. But even the journey through like through the different states that he's doing, I thought I'd really enjoy that, because I normally like these kind of road trip books where they kind of meet all these different people and have all these weird experiences. But it kind of felt like just this really prolonged mental breakdown, and it just made me feel really uncomfortable. I just didn't like watching it. It all just felt like this man was just so succumbed into his grief that he just couldn't deal with anything around him, and it was just like him in this box of ashes. And it was just, there was something really, really sad about it. Like, family were awful as well. Like, his mum was nice, but his dad was awful. Like, there's literally a point in the book where his dad tells him that, like, literally it's only been like 8 weeks or something since, not even 8, like over a little bit over a month since his wife died, and he's gone off on this road trip, like has left everything at home, like didn't even quit his job, just didn't go back to his job, so is obviously dealing with some sort of like mental illness, is starting to, you know, really suffer mentally because of his grief. And his dad actually says to him, he's like, well, I'm not able to just like drop everything on a whim and go and travel, like, you know, for no reason kind of thing. And it's like, your son's wife just died and he's just like disappeared like with the ashes, and you're not worried, you are treating him and talking to him like this, like what is wrong with you? And I just really hated it. And like, I don't think like the dad like kind of helped near the end, but I don't think he really was able to like redeem himself in my eyes. But yeah, I just didn't really enjoy this book. Yeah, I just felt kind of uncomfortable throughout the whole thing, because I just felt like Hunter was having a big massive mental breakdown for the whole entire book. So I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars, and yeah, unfortunately a pretty good week. I ended on a bit of a low note with that one, but these things happen. So yeah, so at the moment I'm reading 3 Dark Crowns, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm about like 120 pages in, and yeah, so please let me know what you guys are reading, what you think of the books that I read, all the usual stuff. Please leave a comment down below and just let me know what you think, and thank you for watching. I'll see you guys again next time.